This is your 1-minute warm-up for your Q&A mock, final number 2 at 225 words per minute. Ready? Your name, sir?
Frank Grayson.
Your occupation?
I'm with the North Carolina Wildlife.
Mr. Grayson, where do you live?
I live approximately 12 miles west of Hickory on Highway 34 near Salem Crossroads.
Do you live there with your wife?
And one boy.
Were you living there on the 25th of March of this year?
Yes.
Sir, did anything unusual occur at your home that day?
Yes, sir. As I approached my home at approximately 12:30 p.m., I pulled in the driveway. I spotted this white van that was backed up in my carport. I knew then that there was something wrong, so I called for some assistance to come and meet me. After I got confirmation that the assistance was coming, I stepped out of my car and I heard my glass door open in the basement. At that time, I pulled my gun and stepped over toward my brick fence. I stopped this black fellow coming up beside the wall with a pistol in his hand. He had the pistol kind of in this position. I yelled at him to drop the pistol. He still held it in that position. In another second, I yelled at him again to drop the pistol. He still held it there for another 2 or 3 seconds, and then he dropped it. At that time, I made him...
This is your Q&A mock, final number 2 at 225 words per minute. Your proper names are Gary Olson, City of New York, Donald Jackson, Mr. Jackson, South Washington Street, Officer Jones, and Miranda. Ready? Would you please state your name for the record?
My name is Gary Olson.
What do you do for a living?
I am a police officer for the City of New York.
How long have you been in law enforcement?
Approximately 16 years.
On April 24, 1995, did you conduct an interview with Donald Jackson, the defendant in this case?
Yes, I did interview the defendant.
Do you see Mr. Jackson here in the courtroom?
Yes, I see him.
Would you please indicate where he is sitting and describe an article of clothing he is wearing?
He is the gentleman sitting to the left of counsel there. He is wearing a green shirt. He has dark hair.
Are you indicating to your left or to counsel's left?
I meant sitting to my left.
What time did this interview with Mr. Jackson begin?
It started at approximately 7 o'clock.
In the morning or in the evening?
It was in the evening.
Where did the interview take place?
It was at Mr. Jackson's place on South Washington Street.
Who was present for that interview?
I was there, Officer Jones was there, and of course Mr. Jackson was there.
Was Officer Jones there for the entire interview?
Yes, he was.
What was going on during the interview?
There was a search warrant being served at the defendant's residence at the same time we started talking to him.
Where in the house was the interview?
The interview took place around a table in what I would call a family room. It was in the back part of the residence.
Were you able to see the other officers conducting this search?
The other officers were conducting the search warrant in different portions of the house.
Were the policemen who were searching the house visible at any time during the interview?
Once in a while, one or more of the police officers could be seen as they passed from one part of the house to another.
How did you happen to talk to Mr. Jackson during this search?
After he was told we had a warrant to search his home, I identified myself to him. I told him I was conducting an investigation related to some burglaries in the area. I then asked if he would assist me in the matter.
What did he say?
He told me he wanted to cooperate and agreed to be interviewed.
Was he under arrest at this time?
No, he wasn't under arrest.
Since there was a search warrant being conducted, how was it made clear to him that he was not currently under arrest and was free to leave at any time?
I told Mr. Jackson he was not under arrest. I told him I did not intend to take him into custody. I also informed him he was free to leave and could refuse to answer any questions.
Did you ever advise Mr. Jackson of his constitutional rights?
Yes, I did. He agreed to talk to me, and I informed him he didn't have to answer all of my questions. I also told him if he didn't like any particular question, he didn't have to answer that question. I then told Mr. Jackson that I wanted to formally read him his constitutional rights from a form that I carried with me.
Did you read him his rights?
I read from our standard Miranda rights card. I then handed the waiver form to Mr. Jackson and asked him to read it. I requested that he sign the bottom of the form indicating he understood it and still wanted to cooperate with us and answer our questions.
Did he appear to read the waiver of rights?
Yes, he did.
What happened after he finished reading the form?
He signed the form and handed it to me. I signed as a witness and then presented the document to Officer Jones for his signature.
Was Officer Jones there when the defendant was read his Miranda rights?
He was present the entire time.
Did the defendant at any time invoke his right to remain silent?
No, he did not.
Did he ask for an attorney at any time?
No, he did not.
When did you begin the interview?
After we had all signed the waiver of rights form.
Would you describe the defendant's physical appearance that evening?
When I first walked into the family room, Mr. Jackson had been watching television. He wasn't wearing a shirt at that time. He was wearing some sort of slacks or jeans. He then excused himself and came back wearing a shirt.
How did he appear emotionally?
He seemed somewhat nervous because of the search warrant that was being served at that time. Other than that, he was relaxed and cooperative.
In your job as a police officer, have you ever dealt with people who are under the influence of drugs or alcohol?
Yes, I have.
Did Mr. Jackson appear to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol that night?
No, he did not.
Was his speech coherent?
Yes, I could understand what he was saying. His speech was not slurred.
Did you or did Officer Jones promise the defendant anything in return for his making a statement to you that evening?
No, I did not, and I know Officer Jones did not.
To the best of your knowledge, was the defendant's statement freely and voluntarily given?
I feel it was, yes.
Was Mr. Jackson placed under arrest or in custody at any time during the evening?
No, to the best of my knowledge, he was not arrested at all that night.
Did you know that Mr. Jackson was a fireman?
Yes, I knew that.
When did you become aware of that fact?
I recall knowing that from the very beginning of the investigation.
Did you believe that fire department policy required his cooperation in this case?
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
Did he ever inform you he would lose his job if he did not answer your questions that night?
No, I was not aware of that, and I do not believe that is an accurate statement.
Can a person with a felony conviction be employed by the fire department?
I don't believe so. In answer to your previous question, however, I don't think a person can be forced to talk to us under threat of losing their job.
If the defendant told you he would lose his job if he refused to answer your questions, would you have taken a different course of action?
I am certain I would have.
What would you have done differently?
I don't think I would have continued my